love. I read 15 books in the month of July, which is actually so crazy. I never do that, but let's get into every single book I read in the month of July, my thoughts, feelings, everything. Okay, so we're actually gonna start with a series that I pretty much binged this entire month. I read the first 5 books in the Heartstopper series. I think there's only one more left, or there's one coming out. I don't even know when it comes out, but honestly I'm not sure that I'm really gonna read it. Now, I did like these books. I don't know how to rate them, and I've still, like, for the longest time have debated how to rate these books, because part of the problem I had with the books was that when I was reading it, it very much felt like these books are not for me, in the sense that I would have eaten these books up if I read them in like late middle school, that kind of stage in my life. I would have loved them so much. But there was a lot of things in the book that happened, or just the way that everything was portrayed, that I just knew it was more on the younger spectrum of things, which is fine. Like, I already knew it was YA going into it, but it was too much YA in the sense that I couldn't connect to the characters as deeply as I wanted to, and I wasn't as obsessed with it as I wanted to be, because I kept being reminded that this book was like not for me. You know what I mean? Like, this book was not written for a 22-year-old to pick it apart, you know? So I feel like if you're on the younger side of things, you would really like these books. Like I said, I wish I had discovered these books when I was younger, but something about the last 2-3-ish books I just didn't love. So I don't know. I feel like the beginning books in the series were my favorite, and I probably will watch the TV show, or at least give it a try, because I did really like the books. Like, a 4-star is so good. I feel like I'm talking like I didn't like the books. I'm just saying, personally, wish that I had discovered these books when I was a bit younger, because I feel like I really would have liked them then. I just don't feel like these books were for me and for my age group, which is valid because they technically aren't for me in my age group. Also, if you've never heard of this series, you follow 2 boys mainly. It's Charlie and Nick, and you just follow their relationship as they grow. And I think the whole series, like, I think it takes up maybe 2 years of their time. They're in high school, I believe. It takes place in, I want to say England, I could be wrong, but it takes place over there, so they have like different school systems than we do in the US. So I'm not super familiar with the grades there, but I'm pretty sure they're in high school. But yeah, it just follows them. That's all I want to tell you, because I don't want to give anything away. And then I listened to Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice. This is the last book in the Finlay Donovan series. I don't know if any more books are coming out, but this is the last one that's out right now. And again, this was also my least favorite. Like, there's a pattern here. As we get deeper into the series, I'm rating books lower, which does not make sense. At least these 2 series. Another series I'm going to talk about is not that way. I don't know why I always talk about my series first. I should probably save them for the last part of the video, but whatever. It's too late now. I listened to this one, which I listened to every single book in the series, because the audiobooks for this series is so good. If you're looking for an audiobook, highly, highly, highly recommend reading this entire series. I think my problem with this last book was that I had to wait on Libby for, I don't know, a month and a half before I could finally get my hands on this audiobook. That was too long. I don't have a great memory. My brain just does not work like that. So I feel like I was disconnected to the series by the time I got my hands on the last book. I'm actually gonna tell you what the first book is about in the Finlay Donovan is Killing It series, because I obviously don't want to ruin anything, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, because I've talked about this book in so many of my wrap-ups at this point. But basically, the first book in the series is about a woman named Finlay who is an author, and she meets with her agent or her publicist, something like that, and she's pitching this book idea, but she's pitching it in a Panera, and her book idea is basically about a hit woman. So this person overhears her talking in the Panera and thinks that she is a hit woman. So this person asks her to kill her husband, kill the other person's husband, not Finley's husband. And then things just stem from there. It's really interesting. It's so good. Like I said, I listened to the entire series, so that could be swaying my opinion a little bit, because the audiobook was just so good. We might as well keep talking about our series, because I read a lot of series this month. Didn't realize until just now. I read Heir, Fire, and Queen of Shadows this month. I'm going to tell you my ratings for this, but I'm not going to give you a synopsis, because again, it's part of a series and it's pretty later on in the series. I only have 3 books left, so I don't want to spoil anything, obviously. But Heir, Fire, I rated a 4 stars. Queen of Shadows, I rated a 4.5. And I feel like so many people are going to think that this 4.5 is me being picky, but I don't feel like I'm being picky, and I am picky with my 5 stars, even though we have 2 5 stars to talk about today. But I don't feel like I'm being picky with this book, because there are are a couple things that stood out to me that I just really didn't like. Even now I can look back and say, yeah, I didn't like those couple of things, and that's the reason why I didn't give it a 5-star, because to me 5-star is perfection. There's nothing I would want to change. But also on the other side of things, a 5-star can be a book that I have not been able to stop thinking about. This book, I put it down, haven't thought about it again, which is shocking to say. Anyways, these two though I think are some of my favorites. Well, I say that, but so far the only book in the series that I haven't given a 4-star and above is Assassin's Blade. I think this is the only one I've given a 4.5. So this one is my favorite so far. Anyways, Throne of Glass, if you don't know what it's about, I'm gonna give you like a very quick little synopsis because I went into it pretty much blind. Love doing that. Love doing that with my books. But it's about Selena, who in the very first book, she is in a like camp, like a prison camp, and she gets brought out of the camp to go to trials to become the king's assassin. And that's all I'm gonna tell you. So you follow her in her journey trying to become the king's assassin. So good, so action-packed, and so far I am liking the series a million times better than ACOTAR. Like, I'm like, how did ACOTAR ever become this popular? It should have been Throne of Glass getting that popular. I'm hopefully gonna finish the rest of the series in August. I want to make a reading vlog of the rest of the series, but the last 3 books are so chunky. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that. So fingers crossed, but like I said, so good. These books, so good. And then the next book I read was so fun. I listened to it on audio, but then I also like flipped through the book because this is Behind the Scenes, My Life in Rhinestones by Dolly Parton. Oh my goodness, this is so good. And normally when I rent a book on the library, I always call it rent. When I borrow a book off of the library, normally I do not think about getting that book at all. Like, I don't need a physical copy if I've already read it. Like, it's nice to have, but I don't need it. But with this book, I very much thought about getting the physical copy because it's so cool. It's so interesting. So basically the physical copy has pictures of all of these iconic outfits that Dolly Parton has worn. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Like, all the photos in that, so good. But also the audiobook, she narrates it and it's very much like interview style. So you have like someone else asking her questions and then she answers them, and I just loved listening to her talk about her clothes and just everything that she went through like as a younger girl and then like growing up and becoming like this icon that Dolly Parton is. So highly recommend both listening to it and also like flipping through it because seeing it, it's so cool. But like I kind of alluded to, this whole book is about her clothes. So being able to see that, stunning. Also, she has like an amazing archive of clothes. The clothes fashion lover in me died. Like, I wear the same thing all the time, but I love to see what other people are wearing, and Miss Dolly slays. So loved that book. I did not rate it because it felt kind of weird to rate it because she's mostly talking about her clothes, and like clothes and fashion is so subjective, and just, I don't know. I'm already kind of biased because I do like Dolly Parton and just her clothes are so stunning. So I didn't rate it, which I normally kind of don't do with memoirs, and I believe that this falls under the memoir category. And then I read Iona Inversion's Rules for Commuting. This book has been on my radar for so long. It was on my 24 books to read in 2024. Actually, multiple. These books were on that list, but this one specifically, I literally only picked it up because a lot of this takes place on a train. So basically it's about Iona, who takes the train every day to work. She doesn't really pay attention to any of the people that she takes the train with until one day a guy almost dies on the train, and then things change from there on out. And I thought that that synopsis sounded so good. It sounded so fun, and it made me a little bit nostalgic for my days of commuting on a train to work. But that was literally the highlight of the book, and that synopsis happens maybe 10 pages in, and the rest is just kind of like, I don't want to say random, but it's just, I didn't like it. I just could not get behind this book. You get multiple point of views as well, and I couldn't hear the characters' voices in any of them. They all felt the exact same, and everything was way too tick and tied to ever happen in real life, which made it feel so fake. I mean, sometimes a little bit of fakeness is good, but it just happened way too much for me to be able to get behind it. And I kept getting pulled out of the story because it felt so fake and because these characters did not feel real at all to me. So that was very disappointing. I rated this a 2.5, which I don't normally give books lower than a 3. Like 3 is like, oh good, like I can see other people liking this, but when I get lower than a 3, I'm like, I just can't see how other people like this, which I feel like sounds so bad. And I do feel like some people could like this. I just could not get behind it at all. So I'm sorry, Miss Iona, it's a 2 for me. And then kind of going along those same lines with books that I just couldn't get into, y'all are gonna be shocked by this one, I feel like. This is Red, White, and Royal Blue. It's not that I didn't like this book. I gave it a 3 star. star. I would still recommend it to people if they were saying that they're looking for a book like this. It was still good. It just was not for me. I could not get attached to the characters. I didn't love the idea that politics were brought up in this, because maybe it's also the time of year that I'm reading this book, but it just took me right out of the story as soon as that would happen. And I hate that. Like, I want to be fully submersed in a book to the point where like someone has to scream my name to get my attention, because I am so immersed in this other world that this book is. And a 3-star is still good. I still liked it, and I still sometimes think about this book. Like, it didn't fully just leave my brain after I read it. I just could not get into it, and that was my main problem. But I did like the characters in this book, which is part of why I still liked it, and it was a 3-star. Just wish I could have gotten more into it, because it is a romance. It's about the President of the United States' son and he's the prince, so he's the Queen of England's son. Yes, and I did like them. I just could not get into the story enough to be like obsessed with it and rooting for everyone. And also some of the things that happened, it just felt too perfect, and I'm pretty sure there was a third act conflict. Yes, there was. Yep. And third act conflicts are gonna be the death of me. Like, I understand why they're in there, but killing me every time. And then I read The Castaways by Hilderbrand. I love her, but this book fell so flat for me. Ugh. I hate to say that, but it did, and it was because there was just so much cheating going on in this book, and I knew that there would at least be a little bit of cheating going on in it, because literally the first line in the synopsis on the back starts with rumors of infidelity. Also, I swear I have not encountered an Hilderbrand book where she doesn't bring up some type of cheating scenario, which is disappointing. But I swear at least one character in all of her books has at least been cheated on in the past, or they're doing the cheating, or something like that. So I was very disappointed, but sometimes that does not bother me, so it's really hit or miss with me. This book had way too much cheating in it. It was talked about all the time, and I felt like it was talked about way too nicely. Like, it was painted in way too good of a light, and it made me very uncomfortable, to the point where this dropped in rating immediately. Like, especially towards the end, I feel like they do not get enough consequences for their actions, and it is just painted in way too good of a light. Like, some of the characters say some things about cheating that is just like, why would you ever think that is okay? You know, that made me uncomfortable, and that's why I gave it a 3-star, because I did really like it, but there was just way too much cheating for me to get behind this book. And now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, maybe it should have been 2.5. I don't know. I still do like Hilderbrand, and I still do like her writing, but this one just was not for me. Also, this is technically the second book in the Nantucket series, which they're more of like interconnected standalones. I don't think people really read them as a series, but I really don't know. And I swear every time I talk about one of these books that's in this series, I always mention that, because I truly do not know. But yes, it is technically the second book in the series. But I'll give you like a quick little synopsis of what it's about. So basically you follow 4 couples, and one day 2 people, like in one of the couple, the wife and husband, go sailing for their anniversary, and they end up dead. And it's a whole mystery about what happened with this couple. So you follow that, and like one of the couple is the chief of police, so he brings like kind of that aspect to it, and you basically just follow that in the friend group, and they do a lot of flashbacks to get to know them. I only have 3 more books to talk about. Oh wait, no, I skipped a book. I have this in front of me because I DNF'd it. I don't know why it's in front of me though. This is The Secret Garden. Literally the only problem with it was that it's a classic, so I wasn't obsessed with like how it's written, because I don't know, reading books like that were written this long ago is hard for me sometimes, particularly when I am slightly bored of like what's going on in the book, and I was a little bit bored with what was happening in this book, so I unfortunately put it down. I even tried to listen to the audiobook, didn't like it, so unfortunately I did DNF that one. But I don't count my DNFs at all, which is why I was like, well, what is this book doing in front of me? I was confused, because I have a list of my books over here, and that was just not on it. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm losing my voice right now, which is so weird because I've not been talking for long enough to be losing my voice. Okay, anyway, we have 3 more books to talk about, which is crazy, simply because one book is a 4-star, the other 2 were 5 stars. Things started to pick back up in the last week of the month. Like, just every book I read was very good. I actually reread The Maze Runner. This is the book I rated 4 stars. It was very good. It was mostly nostalgic, to be honest. I feel like that's where most of my rating came from, but if you've never heard of this book, or you've never seen the movie, because it is a movie, it is a dystopian about a group of boys that is put in this, like, they're almost caged, but they're not really caged. They're in like this grassy area surrounded surrounded by this giant maze and they have to try to figure out how to get out of this maze, but there's like creatures and things that are stopping them from getting out of the maze, and like the maze reshuffles every single night, so they can't just track the maze and get out that way. It's very hard to get out basically, so they're trying to figure out how to get out, and I feel like that's all I can tell you. But like I said, it's dystopian, and that genre is so nostalgic for me because that is what I remember most about reading when I was younger, was the dystopian genre. That was my favorite genre to read when I was younger, so I'm very excited to read the rest of the series and see if I like those books as well, because I only read the first book and then half of the second book when I was younger, so I'm excited to see where that goes and if I like the rest of the series as much as I liked that one. Now I have 2 books to talk about and my camera's already overheating, so I'm gonna go a little quicker. Little B, I'm not gonna tell you much about what this is about because the back you get like this much about what it's about, so I don't really want to tell you too much, but I will say this is about 2 women who meet each other and then they have to make this really big decision, and then 2 years later they come back together and they kind of like reflect on their time together, and you learn what happened 2 years ago. And the ending was so sad. I 100% cried during this ending, and at first I rated this book a 4.5 star, but the longer that days went on, the more this book stuck with me, so I am gonna rate it a 5 star, even though there were some tiny little plot holes and things that just didn't make sense to me, and I was not obsessed with the ending, but I understand why he ended it like that. It was just devastating, and it was so good. I believe that this is general fiction maybe, and I know it's hard because I didn't tell you much of what it was about, but that's all you get on the back of the book, so honestly that's all I want to tell you. And then the last book that I read this month was Divine Rivals. I can't believe it took me this long to get to this book because I've had this book sitting on my shelf since January, but I'm so glad I read it. It's basically about these 2 people who have this enchanted typewriter and they are writing to each other through an enchanted typewriter. It is so cool, but there's also this major war going on, so you really get a lot of the fantasy elements in this book and then a tiny little bit of romance, and I heard you get even less romance in the next book, which is a little bit disappointing because I did really like them together. But the way that this book ended made me immediately want to go pick up the second book. I'm not going to, but it's definitely on my radar to read very soon because like I said, this is a 5 star. It was so good. Highly recommend this book if you like that romantasy. I was obsessed with everything that happened in this book. The war kept me very intrigued, but also then I really wanted to see what would happen with these 2 people and their romance. So highly recommend that one. I know you've probably already seen so many people talk about that book. I'm just very late to the game as always. Let me know what your favorite read of the month was in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!